Let's do it.
All right, so the time is 8:25. Let's try and get this done in about 45 minutes or thereabouts, hey?
Love it.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 71 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. My name is Neeber, and I'm your host for this episode. And sitting across the table from me, I have my co-host and my partner in crime, Mr. Leo. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much. It has been nearly a month since we've sat behind the microphone today.
Far too long.
I know, far too long. And in this episode, we are going to be having a chat about three different games. We're going to be having a chat about our gateway game of the week, which is right here in front of us, which is Monolyth. We're going to have a chat about the games that we've played, which is The Gang, which is a co-op poker game. We'll get to that one shortly. And White Castle, which Leo has been playing.
Yes.
And then we're going to be getting into our discussion topic on this episode, which is, can you know a game after one play? If this is the very first time that you're listening to the Board Game Gateway podcast, we are your entryway into the world of board gaming, tabletop gaming, and fun times. And with no more preamble, let's get into the games that we've been playing over the past, Easter long weekend and the last month and all that stuff. Leo, we're going to start with you and White Castle.
Oh, yeah. Well, you may have heard of White Castle. It has had quite a bit of buzz, I would say.
Yes.
And part of it, I think, is for a few reasons. Some really talented designers behind it. So Isra and Shay, who have been designing some games for, I believe they're called Dever Games is the publisher. Devere, thank you. Who had a lot of success with Red Castle by the same designers. Now they've come out, not Red Castle, Red Cathedral. So I'm really getting the names confused. And the newest one, which is White Castle, I think is a brilliant game. I have absolutely loved playing this recently with friends, with family. You can even play it solo, which I haven't tried yet. The other reason I think this is a great game is following on the theme from Red Cathedral is it packs a big punch into a small box. So if you've seen it in stores, similar to Red Cathedral, the box is really compact, but inside it you have a big board that unfurls, lots of wonderful components and pieces, very polished, well-designed, elegant game. There is no wastage in there. To talk a little bit about what it's about, so White Castle has a Japanese theme. You are basically controlling a clan and you're trying to win favor in the White Castle, or win influence, you could say. There are three different workers that you are deploying into different parts of in and around the castle. You have the gardener that can go into the garden area. On the left of the board, you have the warriors that go into the training grounds on the right of the board. And then you have the courtiers who go directly inside the White Castle, which makes up the largest part of the center of the board. So you have three different clan members that you are sending onto the board to gain you that influence, which then manifests in victory points. And the way you do that, I mean, this is where it gets a little bit Euro-y, because you have resources that you're trying to collect that help you pay to send these people to different places on the board. So you have rice that you're collecting for the gardeners, you have like metal that you're collecting for the warriors, and you have mother of pearl, which you collect for the courtiers, right? So all of this sounds very standard Euro, but there's some really clever mechanics mixed in there. For example, there is a dice mechanic, and if you've heard me talk about games before, I am very much into dice and different mechanics around dice.
You are the dice man.
I'm the dice man.
Yeah, you're the dice man, yeah.
And so I feel like I'm well qualified to speak on this. But the game comes with some really nice little bridges that sit on the board. So there's three bridges that represent three different colored dice. The dice then go onto these bridges from left to right in ascending order. So the number of dice you have depends on how many players are playing. When you want to take an action, you need to pick a dice, right? And you take the dice from the bridge, and you can only take from either extreme end. So you're either taking the lowest dice of a color or the highest dice of a color.
Okay.
Then you're placing it on an action space on the board. And then there's a couple of things that happen here. First, the action space will have a dice number printed on it. So the dice that you put on that, then the difference that you work out between those two numbers is either the income that you take or how much you have to pay to get your dice on that spot to take that action, right?
Okay.
There's some really clever things that you're doing there. And if you're thinking, why on earth would I ever take the lowest dice on the left extreme of the bridge? Taking the low dice also gives you a bonus, which is called the lantern. And the lantern, this is hard to explain without visualizing it, but the lantern is a great mechanic that they've woven in. You have a personal board where you are building up this lantern bonus. Every time you deploy a courtier to the castle and you upgrade them a level in the castle, you get to take a card from that level or that room that you put them in. and that card then goes into your lantern space. And so the
Okay.
more you move up into the castle, the more cards you take, the more you build up your lantern space. And when you take a shitty dice and put it into use,
Yeah.
you also get that you trigger that lantern bonus. And the more cards you've put in there,
the more trigger
valuable your lantern bonus becomes. Like
right.
you might get 2 mother of pearls and a medal, and you might get this and that and the other. So
basically, you're making your secondary or your I'm sorry action even better, to the point where it could become, guys, we really can't let him keep having the low dice, otherwise he's just going to keep getting more materials. Right.
Yes. So there's a really nice like balance of mechanics in amongst it, right? So there's there's rewards and punishments, and there's mitigations, and there's much more to the game than what I've described. We'll go into a deeper dive perhaps in a future video.
Yes.
But I will summarize to say, look, it's not a hugely complex game, and it plays beautifully at 2 players, to the point where you could finish, once you know the game well, you could finish a 2-player game in like 30 minutes.
Yep.
There's a surprisingly low number of turns. The game plays out over 3 rounds, each with 3 turns. So
wow, okay, so really, really quick.
It can be over really quickly with 2 players. Obviously, the more players there are, it takes a little bit longer because everyone's got more turns. But whilst it can play quickly, it is not necessarily a lightweight game. You are thinking, you are optimizing, you are able to do so many different things. It's great optionality in what you can do.
This is a theme that's really popping up. This is what Devere Games are really trying to be doing with a lot of their games. It started with Red Cathedral, or didn't say start, but like that's really one of their latest breakout ones. And I've got 2 Devere games sitting right behind you actually there. I've got Red Cathedral, and I actually really love it for its mandala effect of how you take actions and how you have to all like build build the shared cathedral. And then White Castle has come along, and it continues on into their latest game, which is Salton Sea, which I've got and I've yet to play, but it's on my list. But I really do respect for what they've done with. They basically say, how can we take a game and compact its core components into as small as box as possible?
Yeah.
And the Red Cathedral does that in spades. It sounds like White Castle is continuing that trend of doing that.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. And
it's a great game. Highly recommended. One other thing I would say is, if you're a bit of a board game design nerd, you like to read up about mechanics and stories behind a game, the designers of White Castle have written up a really nice blog about their design process and the thinking that went into the game. I think what's interesting here is they had such a breakout success with Red Cathedral. Is you could definitely get that sophomore slump of, oh man, all that pressure of like design the next amazing game. And I think they chronicle that in the blog. And what's really nice is that they went from, oh, should we try to do something similar to Red Cathedral, try to recapture the success. They ended up throwing all that out the window and went, no, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to get to the core of something really fun and different and unique, and then extend that from there. And I think now they've obviously hit it out of the ballpark with White Castle.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for game designers who can do that, who can break down a game into the fun, or come up with a concept and go, well, what's the fun here? And find that. So, yeah, look, I'm looking forward to giving that one a go. And look, it's safe to say that the board game community is kind of agreeing with you. It's already shot into the top 100 of the Board Game Geeks top 100. So
yeah,
that's not easy to break into these days with the amount of board games that are coming out.
Right.
So yeah, look, well that sounds great. And look, that is White Castle by Devere Games, and we'll talk about that maybe if we get a game of it too, maybe in the future.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to move on from White Castle into a game that I have had a chance to play over the past week, and we're going to move into The Gang. This is a co-op poker game, and it's a very weird one to kind of, it's kind of a weird one to really grasp your head around it. So let's break it down, okay? Leo, me and you, we are about to do a Ocean's 11 heist.
Oh yeah.
We're about to go rob a casino, okay? And the way that we're going to rob a casino is that we're actually going to play a game of poker, okay? And in this game of poker, we have got a couple of things that we need to do, okay? The way that this game works is it is essentially we're going to have a standard deck of cards, and we're going to play Texas Hold'em.
Yep.
So have you played Texas Hold'em before?
I've played Texas Hold'em.
Fantastic. For those
Wouldn't
of
say
you,
I'm any good at it, but
for those of you, is anyone really good at it? Yeah. For those of you who have never played Texas Hold'em poker, the way that it works is every player at the table is going to get given 2 cards, and those cards are going to be face down, and they're your cards. No one else will be able to see those cards. Then what we're going to do is we're going to deal out some community cards that everyone has access to. So the way in Texas Hold'em that it works is that we deal out 3 more cards into the center of the board called the flop, and then we deal out a 4th card, which is called the turn, and then we draw out a 5th card, which is called the river.
Yep.
Once you have those 5 cards out on the game board, you are then going to create the best 5-card poker hand that you potentially can. So it goes from high card pair to pair triple to a straight flush full house, straight flush royal flush, if I'm not mistaken. If I remember, you can correct me in the comments if I got that order wrong of the different poker suits. Anyway, so what we're going to do in a game of poker, what would normally happen is we would bet after every hand. After cards are coming out, we'd bet how much money, how confident am I? Maybe I'd try to bluff you or something like that. Yep. Then after the flop comes out, we'd bet again. Turn comes out, keep betting until eventually either everyone is out and one person's remaining, to which they take all of the coins, and then rinse and repeat. But this is not poker. This is the gang, okay? So now that we have the basic concept of poker out of the way, we're going to take the same concept, Leo, and we're going to play a game of poker, but where we are on the same side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we win if we can successfully order our hands from lowest to highest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the way that it works is that we are going to deal out 2 cards face down to each other, and we're going to have a stack of poker chips. There's going to be 4 different stacks of poker chips. There's a white stack, a yellow stack, an orange stack, and a red stack. We're going to start with the white stack.
Yep.
And then, because there's 2 players, let's say, for example, in this instance, we have another 2 of our friends here. Let's say, for example, we have Ralph and Joel. They're joining us as well for this heist, okay? We're going to take the 4 poker chips and going to have stars on them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are all then, without revealing any information about our hands, we're going to take one of those poker chips. 1 indicating you think you have the lowest poker hand, to 4 stars, meaning you think you have the highest poker hand. Now, we can talk. We can say, I think I've got a pretty strong hand, but I can't say, hey, guys, I think my pair of jacks is pretty strong right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about it. We can kind of indicate, but we can't really, can't really give away any information. Then we're going to take those poker chips that you say. So let's say, for example, I take the 4-star, you take 1, and Ralph and Joel take a 3 and a 2. We're going to then deal out the flop. We then grab that yellow stack of poker chips and we rinse and repeat. We do the exact same thing again. Now we have to reevaluate our poker hand given how the flop cards have come out and whether or not I think my hand is still good or do I think my hand has gotten really bad or maybe all of a sudden you go, oh, you've just hit something really big. You immediately reach for the 4 stars.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there going, wow, what does he hit? Like, why is he going so? And then we rinse and repeat and we figure out where our stars need to go. Do the turn, rinse and repeat. Do that once again. We have 4 more chips and we all figure out. And then we get to the river. And once the river comes out, this is our final test to crack the case, to crack the vault, as it were. Right? If we are able to, then we take our last one. So let's say, for example, you take the 4 again and I take the 3. Joel takes the 2 and Ralph takes the 1. Fantastic. Now we reveal from lowest to highest. So Ralph would reveal first. He's got a pair of 2s. Joel reveals next. He's got 2 pair. I reveal next. I got 3 of a kind. And you reveal next. And you've got a straight. You've hit something really big, right? Congratulations. We as a team, we just won the heist. Woo! We're 1 of 3 on the way to winning the game. Okay? If we are able to successfully do this 3 times before we lose 3 times, we have successfully cracked the vault and we have won the game and we have stolen the thing.
So you said there were progressive rounds of like betting on lowest to highest. What happens to the previous bets that you made?
Nothing.
Are they ignored? Is
They
it
are
only the
ignored.
last set of stars that
They
matters?
That's exactly right. Only the last set of stars matters. So you can use it to kind of, it's kind of
Yes, I see.
information. So I can see, hey, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What you had in the previous rounds only matters what you had at the end.
Yes.
But here's where, okay, so that is the game. That's the core of the game. Okay. Now the
Wait. Can I just ask one more thing?
Please do.
Because I'm a stickler for how you weave thematic into rules. I still don't get what we're cracking with poker hands. Like, how do they link the poker hands?
So it's literally just there's a
Is there a
bank
code?
vault. No, there's just a bank vault at like these cards of bank vaults, and
Yeah.
if you successfully have done that, what we said we need to do, you get one of the cards which indicates you have cracked the vault, or like you've cracked one of the vaults.
Okay.
Then we're gonna go crack another vault, and we need to crack 3 vaults before we trip the alarm 3 times.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so there's no real at its core. That's the base game.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Now, if you've played poker before, I'm gonna give you a heads up. This is probably not the game for you because you are going to find it super easy. Because I played this game with my brother, my 2 brothers, and one of my cousin, and we've all played poker for years, and we hold poker nights at my house and all that stuff. We never tripped the alarm.
Wow.
We were on it from the word go. We were like, I'm like sitting here going, surely we're missing something, right? So here's where the game takes a little bit of a turn. That's the base game that you play with people who've never really played poker before. Where the game gets interesting is that there is now what they call 10 cards which create a little bit of spice.
Mm-hmm.
They do things such as, for example, okay, from this particular instance, in this particular round, you are never allowed to use the white chips. You skip the first round.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you guys got off the flop. It is immediately just straight into, you just have to kind of figure it out from one, which is one less round of information that is kind of there. And the way that it works is that every time that you successfully crack a vault, you have to then draw another one of these handicap cards off the top of that deck, and now you make the round harder for yourself, such as the moment that someone takes a chip. For example, this is one of the things that says, the moment you take a chip, that can never be removed from in front of you. So if you immediately go, yes, I've got the highest hand, and you take the 4 chip, no one else can ever take it. In fact, you're not allowed to put it back in the center. It's like, it's yours.
Yep.
So that maybe throws off your information. Or, for example, there may be a card that says, hey, for this particular round, you're not allowed to talk. You can only let the chips do the talking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so, for example, and then every time that you do this, one of the ones that's actually really hard for a poker player, you'll understand this, which it says, hey, this hand, everyone's pocket, the 2 cards that you have in front of you, are 3 cards, not 2.
Ooh.
And that doesn't sound like a big deal until you play poker and you're realizing your amount of possible combinations have just skyrocketed. And you're like, that was the only... So we played this game for about a good hour, and we played about 7 different games of it. Like 3 or 4 at the base game, and then 3 or 4 with cards and shuffling and doing all this different stuff. We only failed once, and it was with having 3 pocket cards. That was the only time we ever failed, because it was just like, something got thrown off and we're really close. I really enjoyed my time playing the game. I am going to reiterate, however, if you are a poker player, you are going to find this super easy.
Well, maybe the proof here would be, would you play this again with your poker friends?
No.
There you go.
I wouldn't play it with my poker friends. I would play it. Here's the thing. I'd play it with people who don't know poker, but then there's part of me that goes, yes, but if they don't know poker, they won't understand why I'm grabbing the 4 when the jack comes flying out on the turn.
Well, do you feel like if you played with people who didn't know poker, that you would feel like you would know too much and they would know too little? Like the gap between the players there would be too much?
Potentially, yes. And this is where it's an interesting thing, which is that the game is actually dividing players at the moment on whether or not it's actually a good game. I like the concept of it. I really like what it's trying to do. I just can't see myself playing a lot of it. That's not to say that this is a bad design in any way, shape, or form. It's just that when you've played a lot of poker, you begin to understand very quickly what certain cards mean as soon as they come out. And if everyone at the table is on the same wavelength, which me and my brothers were, you immediately just know, hey, why did Neeber, he went from 1 star on the flop, then the turn card was a jack, and he immediately grabbed for the 4 star. He's probably got a pair of jacks under his thing, and he's just hit a triple. He's probably hit a triple. And that was one of the other cards, which was before you do the game, at the end of the game, whoever grabbed the 4 star at the end of the game on the red chips, you have to guess what their hand is. Not suit perfect, but you need to go, you have a 2 pair, or you have triple, right? You have to guess that. And we got that every single time. We're like, you've got a straight. There's no, you've got a straight. And I was like, yep, you've got a straight. And that's why I was like, it's not that I didn't have fun, but I almost feel like we figured out the game, quote unquote.
Yep.
I'm like,
you almost solved it.
Yeah, it's almost like, and that's the thing. This is a kind of game that I do think you can solve if you have poker buddies. That's not to say don't try it though. I do think it's only about $30 game because it's a deck of cards and 25 poker chips. It's it's not unworth your time and money.
Let's say I wanted to play with people who didn't
Mm-hmm.
play poker or know much about poker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does it teach people about different types of poker hands and what they're worth?
So the game does come with two different sorts of reference cards. One is specifically the hand rankings.
Yep.
It's like, here's just one card that has the hand rankings. So you need to know. Now, that is obviously the biggest hurdle to learning card games of poker and Liar's Dice and all these other games that require poker value sort of hands. You need to understand why these hands are worth more, or at least understand not why, but the order in which these hands are ranked, right? You need to always know that 2 pair is better than a pair, but it's never better than a triple, right? Things like that. It's like, why? That's just always the case. It's because it's harder.
Probability,
It's
right?
probability, right? It's
Yeah.
harder to get 3 or 4 cards than it is to get, 4 cards of 2 different pairs, right? So it's how it kind of works. Once you understand that, however, so I would almost say, I'd almost be keen to teach this to my friends who aren't massive poker players and just watch them play. I'd almost be you could be a spectator in this game. Like, you could really be a spectator in this game, and I think it'd be just as fun as playing it if you're a poker nerd. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what it would feel like if I was playing with people who weren't poker players. I don't know what that would feel like, because I feel like there could be some frustration. I'm like, but also maybe that's a learning chance to teach your friends what specific things mean, maybe.
I'm just going to throw a 90-degree turn here.
Please do. I love people who play devil's advocate. Go for it.
No. This is completely different,
No,
right? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I wonder if this is popular a little bit because of, Balatro and like the boom of like poker-themed games.
Yeah.
And then it kind of made me think, here's an idea for the designers. Maybe they've already thought of this, but it'd be cool to see like a legacy version of something like the Gang, where potentially, like, would this make the game more interesting for poker players as well, where perhaps over time you could introduce new cards into the deck, or new cards for each player that change the way the mechanics work, or change the way that poker hands can come together, and maybe add a little bit of spice.
Well, realistically, this is what the crew is. The crew is euchre meets cooperative storytelling, right?
Yes.
That's what euchre is. The crew is, right? And I think this is why the Gang got greenlit, because the crew was obviously so successful.
It was so good, yeah.
So because the crew and the crew Deep Sea Nine were greenlit, this is probably, I expect this is why this one has been greenlit, because it's like, hey, we have euchre, a card game that's turned into co-op. Let's turn poker into co-op, right? And like I said, I don't dislike this game at all. I just feel like I've solved it. And now that may be arrogant of me to say, but I do really feel like that was what we felt.
That's a valid viewpoint, yeah.
Like, when the 4 of us played it, we were like, after 45 minutes to an hour, we're just like, we didn't have the challenge that wanted us to keep chomping at it, to keep trying it, because we felt like we just kept every challenge. It was like, yep, we got it. And it wasn't even that we were sitting there struggling for 20 minutes and go, yes, we got it. It was just, no, we got it. Bang, there you go, we're done. And we're like, yep, that's pretty. And we were like, 95% of the time we had gotten it. So it's an interesting one, right? Like, I don't want to, like I keep saying, I don't want to disparage this game. I actually like the design. It's just not for me anymore. And very quickly I could tell this one's was not going to stay in my collection for long. So I just want to preface that, which is that if you are after an interesting take on the co-op genre and you like poker, this is probably one to definitely check out. I will say though, if you're playing with people who really know poker, you are going to figure it out pretty quickly. It's pretty easy to do. But
cool,
give it a go. And that was The Gang, published by Cosmos Games. So anyway, we're going to move on now to our featured game of the week. This is our gateway game of the week, which we have sitting here right in front of us. This is Monolyth by Phil Walker Harding and published by Simon Games. This is a game that I happened to pick up at the CanCon distribution box. Basically there was a whole pile of these things sitting in a box, and they were on special for about $15. And I saw that looked super cool, and I was looking for games to play with my kids. And I didn't really know much about it until I read the back of the box and it said, hey, we're going to make some, basically a 3D spatial puzzle. So let me take you into this. Now, before we get into this, I would like to preface in saying we're going to be trying something new with our podcast now, which is we are actually going to take the game that we are going to do on our podcast, and we are going to do a deep dive of the Gateway game on our YouTube channel. So instead of us going full into depth on our podcast, we want to try and do that and do an in-depth sort of thing on our YouTube channel. So we're going to take you through how the game plays in our initial reactions to it. And you all know, if you're listening to our podcast, if we featured on the game, on our podcast, we like this game. We think it's worth your time. We don't feature games in our Gateway Game of the Week that we think are bad. So you should know that we are going to, we do like this game. So if you want to learn more about it, head on over to our YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/@BGGateway. Make sure you go. Just
BG. There you
BG
go.
Gateway.
That's a good clarification.
Not BGG Gateway, because that would be board
There'll
game.
be 3 Gs.
That'd be board game gateway. We don't want to confuse. So @BG Gateway is our YouTube handle, and there you'll be able to find our list, our playlist and stuff. But you will find our latest video on which is our deep dive into Monolyth. So let's take you through very quickly what Monolyth is. It is a 3D spatial puzzle in which every player is going to be given one of these 4x4 grids, and we're going to have this little rondel of pieces here in front of us. And I'd like you to imagine the game Patchwork mixed with a 3D building puzzle. That's what essentially this game is. The way that it works is the game is going to be, it's a very friendly, I wouldn't say this is cutthroat at all. This is a very friendly, kid-friendly game in which you're going to be building. You can see here in front of Leo. It's, for those of you who are not watching, basically a cube. Okay, in a 1 or 2 player game, you're building a 4x4 cube, and in a 3 or 4 player game, you're building a 4x3 cube. Along the way, all you're going to be doing is on your turn, you do one of 2 things. You either take a piece in the sequence. You can pick up to 4 pieces in front of you as we go around clockwise around the board. You pick a piece, you put it onto your game board. Couple of rules: you just can't have like overhangs. Every piece has to be supported. You can't go outside of your grid, so you can't go higher or outside of the grid. It all has to stay completely in. And that's the first action you can do. And the second action you can do is you can take a prophecy. And a prophecy quite literally is you're saying, hey, on this particular side of my game board, it says this is my light blue side. I'm going to have how many faces of that light blue side are going to be light blue. In a 2-player game, which has up to a 4x4, so you can have up to 16 faces on that particular side of the cube, you can make a prediction and say, I'm going to get a perfect side. I'm going to get 16. You take that and put it down. That's your turn. So either take a block, put it into your thing, into your monolith, or take a prophecy. Pretty simple. Along the way, you're going to get bonuses. You're going to get bonuses for every time you complete one of your levels. You get the highest victory points on the level, on what's called the structure. And also then we have the structure bonus, which is every game, this is a little bit of variability. We pull out a new random card, and that's going to tell us a specific sort of structure we are trying to build. In our particular game, we had what's called the altar. So it had to have a maximum of 1 on the outside, 1 high, and then up to as many 2+ in the center. So we're creating these specific 3D spatial things. If you're the first one to do it, grab the bonus points. At the end of the game, you just tally up all the predictions you got correct, all of the level points that you got, and all the structure points that you got. You can only get one of those if you did it or not. Whoever has the most points is the winner. This game plays in about 30 minutes, probably maximum, and you can play it with kids as young as 7 or 8 years old. I really liked it. I've kind of explained the whole game to you. Leo, if you want to check out our YouTube channel, Leo's got what he made in our little game that we played before our podcast recording. Go check that out. But Leo, I would like to pass this to you very quickly. What did you think of the game, Monolyth?
I really enjoyed it. I do have Patchwork at home, and I've played it a lot. If you have played Patchwork, imagine doing away with all of the economy parts of Patchwork, and even like the board where you're moving your little piece across the victory track. Does away with all that stuff, and then all it does is it just simplifies it down to a 3D spatial puzzle with lots of ways to get victory points in very clever, elegant ways, right? It's like, and it gives you some really nice optionality. Do I maximize completing this, shape, this specific shape, or do I just go for the level, or do I just try to get my, my prophecy bet? And through those 3 really distinct paths, I think it gives you some really nice decisions that are not like mentally draining. It's quite a relaxing, pretty straightforward game to play. Great for family. I think it's just a solid, nice gateway game. I definitely enjoyed it. I'd play it again.
It looks really good on the table as well. My daughter, when she saw me playing it with my brothers on my birthday last week, she was like, "Oh my God, what's that?" And I went, "I'll teach you this next week." And
I mean, for those looking along on the video, like the pieces are satisfyingly chunky. They're not heavy, but they're really nicely designed. They've got these little, like, kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, like hieroglyphic kind of art, design, right? Like, but sci-fi. It's just enough to give it, a good feeling.
Yeah, and so the cubes are a little bit more than about one. They're about 1.5 centimeters by 1.5 centimeter cubes, and they come in like tetromino pieces. So you've got the classic 3-in-1 little T section. You've got like little angle brackets. You've got a 3 section. There are a few things that you can do. How you can trade a piece for a 1. So we had some really interesting interactions between the two of us. I really like this game. I think it works best with 3 or 4. I think when you start getting 3 or 4, then you start to have a lot of more people taking things that you really want. You can be a little bit mean. Whereas this game, however, we aren't going to talk about it much here in the podcast. We're going to talk about more in the YouTube video, but there are a lot of comparisons to Patchwork that we will probably have a chat about in that particular video. But we actually can't recommend this one enough because this is a game that takes away with all the nastiness that a lot of kids may not understand, of like, especially the economy. It does away with any sort of economy and just says, hey, you can take one of these 4 pieces. Why? That's the rule, okay? Great, but you don't need to worry about what you're going to get. And it's like, but I can't put that there. And it makes you have to think a little interesting, like, hey, maybe I can take this and rotate in a specific way and lay it down. And you were right, like, but if I do this right now, then Leo's going to get the extra points for going to the level up, so maybe I have to do this. Like, you absolutely smashed me in our game. But, like, that was also because I went big. I'm like, I'm going to make a really big face. Ha ha ha. Like, I completed one entire level of my thing. And you went, well, I'm just going to finish the altar. And I never did. And it's like, that was just 10 points that you just got and I never got. I was like, damn, I really should have done that. But, like, little things like that where the game is really cool. Like, it comes in the standard side as, standard kind of box size, I guess, or like the one, what do we call this? Like the one calyx unit.
The calyx unit.
Yeah, I think that's what we coined this like 2 years ago, like a year ago on the podcast. It's the KU. It's a calyx unit, right? Yeah. It's the standard calyx unit box. But it has a lot of table presence when you put it out here because you have to put it's almost like a Stonehenge thing put in the center of the board. You got all the bits that you can take from it, and you make your little monolith puzzle. And it plays it the same at all player counts, so it's only about half an hour maximum. It's really quick. It will keep your kids engaged, and I really want to recommend this one. It's 3 years old, so has only been up for a few years. But if you can get a hand on Monolyth, I think you'd be looking at a really good addition to a collection for, especially with younger gamers or people that you just like doing things with their hands. Things like if you like picking up pieces and doing it, I think you'd be having a good time with it.
Definitely.
Well.
Yep. Agreed.
Anyway, so if you'd like to find out more about our thoughts and a bit more of a deep dive discussion into Monolyth, we're going to be doing that on our YouTube channel. That's going to be released basically at the same time as our podcast. I think the day after is what we're going to do there anyway. So go to our YouTube channel and check that out there. And with that, we are going to go into our final topic for this evening, our discussion topic, which this is one that I saw cross my feed. And I want to give a big shout out to Danny from Board Game Sanctuary. He's a local Australian board game YouTuber. He lives here in Sydney as well. And he came up with a topic which he talked about on his YouTube channel called, can you judge a board game after one play? And I wanted to have a chat about this as well. And so we're calling this can you know a game after one, or can you know after one? And because I wanted to bring this up because I do think it's a very poignant point that he has brought up, which is that we kind of in our space, in the board gaming space, we kind of get sucked into the cult of the new. Hey, we play a game. Hey, how cool is that? Move on to the next game because there's another game that's released and we can play that game. But how many times do we get suckered into playing a game only once and then just disregard it after that one play? And this is something that I want to have a chat about because is that right? Is it not right? Is it something that we should consider? Like, should we be giving games more time given how they cost? And this is something that I wanted to bring up and have a discussion about because we're in a unique position as being board game podcasters and myself now being a reviewer, having done my first review on our YouTube channel. I want to bring this up and ask you this question, Leo, but I'm also going to ask the people at home, how many plays should we be giving games, or is there a right number? Like, what is our take on this particular?
Well, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I have a few takes on this. The first one is that in terms of how many plays is the right number of plays, it's probably a personal thing, right? Like if when you say, we get suckered into buying new games, well, if people find their joy from opening up a new game, punching out the components, learning new rules, I think that's valid, and it's okay if that means that you're probably, maybe putting other games that you could play more times to the side.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, I see that as a personal decision. But there's a couple other takes to this. One is like, on the other hand, if you're then going out and talking about games publicly and recommending them or reviewing them, then I think it becomes less of a personal decision and maybe a little bit more of a responsibility in terms of like, if you're going to judge a game publicly and potentially make a judgment call that that you publicize, probably responsible to give a game a little bit more of a chance. So that maybe that's one distinction. I think there's the personal element to it, but then there's like the critical or public facing element to it.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point because, as you said, there's two ways we can look at this, which is I do want to separate it, which is there is the media slash the media side of it being, well, it is my job to, I've taken upon myself to be a board game critiquer, if you will, slash, I wouldn't call myself a board game influencer, but I would call myself someone who has maybe a board game opinionist, if you will, maybe. And so do I feel right in giving my particular opinion after one play? And you're right. It's definitely on a personal spectrum, but I guess the follow-up is, do you feel that there are reviewers, do you think that people can know a game within one play? And see, this is where I come into an interesting thing, because on a personal note, I think there is absolutely, yes, you can know a game after one play. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying, for example, like a game like Twilight Imperium or Brass Birmingham or, I don't know, Pipeline, these heavy, complex Euro games, you are going to be able to know them after one play. However, is one play enough to make a judgment call on those games? Let's say, for example, hey, I've played Brass Birmingham once and I didn't really like it, but do I need to give it a second play because maybe I missed something, or maybe I just didn't gel with it because the game experience potentially made me think about something in a different way. I mean,
I do think there's something to that. I've got a similar example to yours, but it can also be environmental things. It can be who you play the game with, as in there are external factors that may contribute to you having the first impression of a game not be the actual judgment that you might make under different conditions, if that makes sense. So perhaps you were playing with a group that knew the game really well, or that took certain strategies that made you not enjoy the game as much, or not see it in the best light, or the way that you played it. So my similar example is my first experience of Terra Mystica was playing it on Board Game Arena with a group of people that already knew how to play it, and I felt like I was lagging in terms of trying to figure it out. And I really struggle playing games digitally first. Like, I much prefer having the physical experience first with the rules in front of me, all that stuff, right? So then I was left with a really sour taste in my mouth about Terra Mystica. Since then, I can't say I think I played it another time, again, digitally. It wasn't great, but I've played Gaia Project on the table. And at first I'm like, oh, is this going to be another slog? Is this going to be, why am I doing this? Ended up loving it. Like, just completely different experience where everything clicked. I understood what the game was trying to do, and I felt like I could figure my way around it better. And so, yeah, it's a tricky one, right? But I do think there is something about, giving a game a second chance, and not necessarily just sticking to that first.
It could
judgment.
even be something similar as maybe just not in the right headspace on that particular time. And this is why it's an interesting question. And I think I really thank Danny for bringing this up on his board game channel, because it really, as soon as I saw the topic, I went, crap, that's a really good topic of discussion, I think. And I agree with you. I will say, I do think after you have played enough games, on the very first play of most new games, you can get the general gist of what this game is before you have really sunk your teeth into it. And I think, I'm saying this I don't want to say I'm riding the fence here, but I do think there are a group of people who have, I say a group of people, we all have preferences in what we like to play. You're the dice man. I am very much a social, I love my economic Euro sort of games. Ralph loves his social deduction, those kind of games as well.
I feel pigeonholed now.
Well, I'm just saying,
Damn
for example, if there is a mechanic that you know you don't really like, for example, my brother Nick doesn't really like, he doesn't really like worker placement.
Yep.
And I think that's because some of the games that he has played, the worker placement, it doesn't bring anything into the experience with him.
Yep.
I'll use this example, right? He doesn't like viticulture, the winemaking board game. He just, I don't know what it is. He just bounces right off it and he says, I don't really like it. To the point where if I ever mention this game has worker placement in it, he's like, I don't know, mate. Like, I don't know. It's to the point where, so we came over to my house about, probably a month ago, just after we recorded our last podcast. And Damien brought On Mars. And I said to him, I've wanted to play On Mars for a long time. It's a big, heavy game, right? But it has worker placement in it. And my brother Nick was like, I'm keen to learn something new. And I said, Damien has been raving about this game and he really wants to play it again. And I'd like to learn. He says he thinks you'd enjoy it. What's it got? It's got worker placement. Oh, I don't know, right?
Shouldn't have said that.
Shouldn't have said it, right? But at the end of the game, he won, right? So that helped his experience.
That definitely helps.
It helped his experience. But he literally went, this is a game. So he lives about half an hour from my house. He goes, this is a game that I would drive to your house to play anytime. If we're playing On Mars, I will drive to your house to play it anytime.
Oh, that's a
huge thing, right? Now, he only played that once. And he had such a good experience. And that's why I think sometimes, which is that I almost think if you play and you don't like it, do we owe the board games at least a second try? I'm not saying a third try, but I have definitely been guilty of going, I don't know if I need to play that again.
Yeah.
But then forced myself to play it a second time and then gone, okay, I'm glad I gave that a second turn. Because now I can go, okay, that wasn't as bad as my first play, but now I know, okay, I may play that under different circumstances.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
Well, you touched on a funny thing there, which is, how many times have we played a new game or introduced a new game to friends or loved ones? And there's that thing where if you kind of hope that they're going to win or because
you
that almost guarantees you're going to get to play it again, especially if you like it personally and you're worried they're not going to like it. If they win, they're like, okay. So I'm not saying that I'm going to let people necessarily win. I'm very competitive, but there is something, again, going back to external factors or, other things that you can't control necessarily that affect how, what your judgment is of a game the first time you play it. I think definitely when you win, that can help. Usually like a different color. It's an interesting topic.
There are a few games like that, and I can't remember that off the top of my head, but there are a couple of games. Actually, no, Blood on the Clock Tower was like this for me. The first few games of Blood on the Clock Tower, I knew what the game was, and I was like, I just don't know if I'm as into it as everyone says it is. And but I had something in the back of my head that goes, no, you got to give it just give it a few more turns.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a few more turns. And it's like when I gave it a few more turns and then it clicked. And when it clicked, I'm like, oh, this is really good, right? I really like it. But had I not, I don't want to say you have to grind through the first couple of plays because I do think you need to, a game needs to respect your time.
Yes.
And I do think after a first couple of playthroughs, you really can tell if you're going to like a game and whether or not your time is valuable. I don't want to say you have to be playing games that you dislike, but can we truly judge a game after one play? And I think sometimes we can be pretty harsh with games and our time at the moment.
I think if you're a seasoned board gamer and you've seen, the same kind of mechanics play out in lots of different games, you're more likely to be able to go, I kind of get it. I know where this is going, and you can make a judgment earlier.
Yeah.
Where it's something completely novel or very heavy and, all this stuff. So I think there's things that help. Obviously, having someone who understands the game sort of explaining it to you, especially when something I find that's not great for first impressions is where you don't really understand what the game's trying to do. And so you can't understand the strategy. And if you can't follow a game enough to at least know how should I be thinking about this game or how should I be strategizing around this, you're going to be less likely to really get much out of it on the first try. So there's things that mitigate that. I think that helps.
Well, the biggest example I can think of is one of the, as well. I can think of a massive example, which is Damien with Arcs. Right, we played that at PlayCon on day 2 at about 3:00. we just finished a game of Food Chain Magnate, which, if you've ever played it, can be a 3 to 3 hour. It's a great game, but it's a mental slog. You're doing a lot of calculations and planning and figuring out your moves and blah, blah, blah. And we did all that stuff, and then I said I really enjoyed my game of Ark, which I played game 1 of day 1, and I was like, "This is brilliant, right?
Yeah,
loved it." And I taught it to him, and he was like, I don't know." Like, and I'm like, "This is literally your game. It's a strategic card game. You are the card man, and you love strategic. This is your game." I don't know about it. I thought about it, and I don't know. And I'm like, all right, no, well, look, let's back it away. Like, you're not feeling it. Let's back it away. But 2 weeks later, we're on Facebook in our board game group, and Damien's like, "Yeah, so I've ordered Arcs and the blighted
it's gone all in
expansion." And I'm like, "I thought you didn't like it." And he goes, "I just wasn't in the right headspace, man.
Yeah.
Like, it is totally my game." And I went, I was almost felt vindicated in a way, but like,
so I haven't played Arcs, right? But based on what I've heard about it, maybe this is a good example where you might come into a game like Arcs with preconceived notions. You might see typical sci-fi, maybe like a 4X type game, and you go in with the mentality it's going to be that. But then by all accounts, and you've played it obviously many times now, it's not that, right? Like, it can be a very tactical game. You have to play the hand that you're dealt, like things like that. So again, if you've come in with preconceived notions, what's your first judgment going to be of a game like that?
Exactly. Yeah. And this comes back to the point of like, hey, after one play, and I say this as a board game opinionist and now a reviewer. Like, I do think that if I'm going to give you a video review or a game review, I do think I need to play it a few times. Not only just so I understand the game, but so I understand some of the nooks and crannies, and I can properly visualize and vocalize what it is that I like and don't like about the game. I will completely be honest with you. There are gateway games that we have recommended, which we have played only once, and we immediately knew that is a gateway game of the week. Like, we only had to do it once. Now, granted, maybe it's easier with smaller games.
Yep.
Maybe it's much easier with smaller games compared to bigger games. But we have done that, and I don't feel bad in saying that, because there are games that we've gone, yes. And there have also been games that we've played and gone, I don't know. And then we play it again and we're like, yeah, no, this is not good enough to recommend, we don't think. But then there are games that we've been on the fence with and gone, and then we play a second time and went, no, I can see it now. Like,
yes.
I get, like, okay, my preconceived notions of what I thought this game was, I had to scrap that away. Now that I know what the game is, I can just go with that, and away we go. So,
yeah,
I don't know. It's a very interesting discussion. We want to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Are there things like, do you think that board games need to be played more than once? Do you think that they need to respect your time? Do they have to get you in on the first play? Or do you think that maybe we owe it to our board game collections to play them multiple times before we make our decisions on whether or not we keep or do we move them on? I mean, we have our opinions, but we'd love to hear yours as well. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start to bring this one to an end, to episode 71. Now, before we do get to the end, I do want to bring 2 pieces of news. One, I should have prefaced this at the start, but I was going to say I've been getting into Netrunner a lot recently. And if you're interested in Netrunner or Project Nisei, they're about to release their new Elevation starter pack set of cards. The reason why I announced this is because this is the first set where their rotation is now going to completely get rid of the Fantasy Flight cards out of their rotation. So if you've never played Netrunner but you've seen it and you want to try and get into it, now's a really good time to go and have a look at the Sharp and Sit Down review that they have should you get into Netrunner in 2025. They just changed the year in the title every single year at the moment for the 3 years it's been up. That will show you how you can get into it for free. You can totally get into Netrunner for free. It's all open source. Project Nisei release all the cards. You can buy them from their shop, or you can just print them proxies, and they're tournament legal. So if you ever think, hey, maybe you're a Magic player and you want to get into it, then now's the time definitely to go and have a look at it. I just want to say that because I'm getting into it myself, and I'd like some more people to play with. There are a couple of friends that I've got, but I'd like some more. But the second thing is a little bit of sad news, unfortunately, that we need to announce. And that is that, unfortunately, Damien has had to step back from the podcast for an indeterminate amount of time. He's got some personal issues that he needs to take care of. And look, this is our hobby and we love this, but we said to him, you do not put this first. Go and take care of yourself and your family. And he's going to do that. And we ask you to respect his privacy. And look, we won't go into it so much. He's just super busy. He's taking care of basically himself. And essentially, we just wish him the best of luck. He is always welcome back on the Board Game Gateway podcast. Without him, we wouldn't have actually had Sydney's Family Game Day. He was So he will still be around. He will be still at the game days helping us out. He's already said he wants to do that, but he just will not be in any of our content in the lead up for an indeterminate amount of time. But when he's back, we'll make sure that you're aware of it and he's aware of it as well. But unfortunately, we love Damien and we wish him the best. And look, that means that we may have to look for another fifth person as well to come and join our podcast. So we'll see how
Auditions open.
Auditions open. We'll see how that one goes. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for episode 71 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. If you liked what you listened to, please make sure that you like and subscribe. Make sure that you hit the follow button. You leave us a 5-star review. If you're listening, make sure you go check out the YouTube channel. If you're on the YouTube channel, go check out the audio podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can also find us on Stitcher and a few of the other major podcast platforms as well. But until next time, make sure that you have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day, night, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this podcast. My name is Neeber. That is Leo. We're the Board Game Gateway podcast. We'll see you next time.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.